Welcome to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. My name is Eliza Gelman. I'm so happy you're here with me today. Today we have a jam-packed episode, lots of information, lots of data, lots of realizations and examples, application. The goal of this podcast, if you're new here, is to take a deep dive into wellness, talk about how we can gain mastery within our wellness from the inside out. We want to give applicable examples. We want to give application. We want to make sure that we're giving you the data, we're giving you the facts, and potentially some information you didn't know before. Today, it is Sunday, and I'm in the kitchen. I'm cleaning vegetables and, being a just really happy at-home girl today. I'm gonna get a workout in. Like, the weather is gorgeous. I was watering the plants, cleaning strawberries, chopping wood, chopping vegetables, and prepping for the week. And I was trying to decide what I was choosing between a couple of topics for today's episode. It became so abundantly clear that the information that we have been given and are receiving is so diluted when it comes to pesticides, herbicides, GMOs, and chemicals in general. And I thought about this because I was watering our plants, because I was cleaning the strawberries, things that really bring me so much personal joy. But when you think about it, gardening using so many different pesticides or herbicides and chemicals, and then simply eating healthy, there are so many underlying potential harmful situations that we are in just based on the food that we're purchasing at the stores and the option of food that we're being given. And all I really was thinking about today was following the money. I've talked about this before, and when it comes to food, it's all marketing. When it comes to health, so much of the time, it's all marketing. Everything is white labeled. We can't trust anything. How do we know what supplements are the best? How do we know what ingredients are the best? Well, today I wanted to give a breakdown of a few topics, and give a few examples and best practices in order to make sure that we are arming ourselves with the right information, with simple practices that can help us in our day-to-day, and really just overall open our eyes to some of the details that we may not have considered in the past. A few housekeeping things before we get started. If you have not already, make sure you head over to Apple Podcasts. It's the purple app on your phone. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you never miss an episode, because we are focusing more intensely than ever just on the episodes, less on the social media of it all. I understand social media is important, but there's so much I don't want to see on there and so much I do want to see that's not being fed to me, because apparently it's not okay to see. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's simply just the truth of what's going on in the world right now. Either way, make sure you head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify, hit follow or subscribe. And if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. It is the greatest way for people to naturally have this podcast pushed out in front of them when they're searching for things like health, wellness, nutrition, and overall longevity. Let's jump into the information. We can start off very simply by saying, yes, we believe that organic food, non-GMO food is better than non. That's awesome. However, one, we know organic food is potentially a little bit more expensive. And we also know that when it comes to marketing, it applies not just to the packaged foods, but the marketing applies to our fruits and vegetables as well. That might seem pretty basic and rudimentary, and you might walk into a Whole Foods or a Fresh Market or somewhere where they're known for having a lot of really, really healthy options. But when we are doing our grocery shopping, I know that this audience, we do our best. You know, very 80-20. We want to have a healthy lifestyle, but we want to strike that balance. We want to have, you know, some good flavor. We want to have a little snack here and there. We want to have some delicious treats, but we also know that we want to fuel ourselves properly. So much of that comes with labels. So much of that comes with doing a little bit of research beforehand. But something I thought was interesting was I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and they were remarking on food and how grocery prices have gone up. And if we know this, grocery prices are up. Like, it's confronting, y'all. The bills have changed. We understand this. And I was thinking, okay, you know, well, if we've already increased the amount of our grocery bill, I'm just going to go to Whole Foods. It ends up being maybe for me, the way I shop and what I'm looking for. And yes, I have like Amazon Prime, so I try and go with those discounts when I go to Whole Foods. But looking at my grocery bill, really not that much more expensive when I go to Whole Foods. And genuinely, is it perfect? No, but I do have a better experience by going there. It feels cleaner. It feels less. It just feels less like a hospital. I feel like they have better lighting, more neutral tones. Like overall, it's just a better experience. Anyways, I've been going to Whole Foods more, and you think, oh, if you get it at Whole Foods, it's healthy. Not always the case. They do have so many more options for healthy foods with good ingredients. But this is something to discuss that has been found and can be found in any grocery store, any maybe not convenience store, any shop that you go do the majority of your grocery shopping in. And that is, when I was talking to my friend, they said, well, yeah, you can go there and get all organic, but what is the big deal? Like, I'm getting fruits and vegetables and they say non-GMO and they say all these things, but what's the big deal about organic? And I thought about this, and a lot of the times we think, oh yeah, non-GMO, that means, you know, they're not pumped with a bunch of genetically modified organisms or ingredients. But it doesn't mean that they aren't maintained a certain way. So let's talk about that. When you're in a grocery store, you will see potentially 1 or 2 different stickers on your food. Let's say you're in Whole Foods or you're in a grocery store and you're trying to make the healthy option. Let's say you grab a box of crackers and you pick it up and it's got this little rectangle on it that says Non-GMO Project Verified, and there's like a little blue box with a little green check mark and a butterfly. You'll see it's a really small square on the box, and you think, wow, non-GMO, that means no genetically modified ingredients. That's great, good for us. That's mark number 1. However, when we look at this, it does only mean, and I'm not saying this isn't a good thing. Like, this is a step in the right direction. Do not get me wrong, but I want to be clear on this. These are not the same things, organic and non-GMO Project Verified. Non-GMOs mean that no GMOs are allowed in that production. However, it does mean they can use synthetic pesticides, roundup herbicides, hexane, sewage sludge, and antibiotics. Sometimes brands will purchase this type of marketing, even if it doesn't pertain to them necessarily. It looks good. It's a little bit easier to get non-GMO verified than it is to get USDA organic verified. Now, the differences between USDA organic, which is the circle, it's green, it's white, and little circle on your packaging. If it has both of those stickers, great. However, if you could choose between something being non-GMO verified when it comes to marketing or USDA organic verified, USDA organic all the way. That's with your meats, that's with your cheeses, your fruits and vegetables, and your packaging. And even things that come down to like soup. So if you're heading more towards a Campbell's or whatever brands make soup, take a look at them. Because here's the difference. between non-GMO and USDA organic. Non-GMO, no GMO. USDA organic, also non-GMO. Synthetic pesticides are allowed in GMO still. No synthetic pesticides in USDA organic. Roundup, which we know is a carcinogen. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. I did want to explore more into the Roundup, glyphosate, herbicide of it all. USDA organic, no Roundup herbicides. Hexane's allowed. Really not sure about the effects of hexane, so I'm not going to even speak on that. And then no hexane allowed. There's sewage sludge allowed, which, yes, you heard that properly. Sewage sludge, meaning that sounds like E. coli. That sounds like potential for tons of bacteria. That honestly just sounds gnarly. And then in USDA organic, no sewage sludge. Antibiotics are allowed, meaning you can have something that has no GMOs, but they can still be pumped with hormones and antibiotics. And then the inverse, USDA organic, no antibiotics. Essentially saying organic is no GMO, no synthetic pesticides, which means they can use pesticides, but they would use a more natural form of pesticides, which again, subjective. No Roundup herbicides, no hexane, no sewage sludge, and no antibiotics. It all sounds great. And definitely, if you do have the choice, you want to go certified organic all the time, when possible. And a lot of times they do have deals. So, I mean, I find the deals. I don't mind buying ugly fruit, ugly vegetables, as long as it's still good to eat. I'm definitely down for it. Also for fruits and vegetables, if you can go into the frozen section and get frozen organic fruits and vegetables that are verified USDA organic, highly recommend doing that as well. It'll last long. They pick them at the peak of ripeness so that they last longer and they mature in the bag. That's what I would do too. That's what we do with our blueberries, which we'll get into in a minute. Now, the thing is that organic food, yes, it's great, but there is still some things to be on the lookout for. When you can, definitely do organic. But when you can't, there are a couple of things to look out for just to make it easier on yourself. You may have heard of, and this is getting into the section of the podcast, talking about which of the fruits and vegetables are more prone to pesticides, glyphosate, and toxic chemicals that are cancer-causing chemicals when consumed in certain amounts, even mild to small amounts. We'll get into that again. But I wanted to give a couple of different things to look out for when you are buying your foods. You've heard about the Dirty Dozen. You've heard about the Clean 15, maybe. If you haven't, the Dirty Dozen is an aggregated list of different fruits and vegetables that are highly sprayed and have a higher chance of being contaminated with glyphosate, Roundup, pesticides, herbicides, ones that you really want to deeply clean, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then the Clean 15 are the least amount of herbicides, pesticides, and all those chemicals. Again, you still want to clean those as well, but they tend to be on the lesser side. And this was interesting to me today because I got a couple of these today. On the Clean 15, on the Dirty Dozen list, this is based on 2003. There's still a 2004 list as well. It gets updated every single year. A lot of them tend to stay the same, but I'll go through this list and then I want to tell you a theme of what I personally see in the lists and how they're compared. For the Dirty Dozen, which means that these are going to have some of the most pesticides, strawberries, spinach, and these do go in order. Strawberries, spinach, kale, collard, or mustard greens, grapes, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, bell and hot peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans. Great. There are a lot of different reasons why, and we won't get into them today, but a lot of different reasons why some might be more susceptible, but something that I noticed specifically when it comes to the Dirty Dozen, and this is a good rule of thumb for when you are grocery shopping and you don't just happen to have this list of 12 vegetables in front of you, that's really challenging to just carry that around all the time. Here's a rule of thumb. think about strawberries, leafy greens, grapes, peaches, blueberries, green beans. Every single one of the dirty dozen fruits and vegetables can be eaten without peeling or without shaving or chopping up. You can eat a pear just off the vine or off the tree. You can eat strawberries just picked right off the strawberry plant. You can eat spinach without it having anything done to it except for maybe a rinse off or sauteing. You can have cherries, blueberries, green beans, bell peppers, hot peppers, apples, peaches, grapes, pop those in your mouth. All of these have a thin skin that doesn't act necessarily as much of a protective barrier. So when you are grocery shopping and you see things that are more porous than others or that have a skin that is firm enough to repel water, but not firm enough that you wouldn't bite through it, meaning an apple. It has that waxy coating naturally. It definitely can repel itself against water. Same with grapes. They've got that film over them. They can get wet, they're fine, but then there's cherries, blueberries, all of these things, like they can wick water away, but you can still bite into them. So that's a rule of thumb that I like to consider. And I'm not saying that, excuse me, I'm not saying that that is the case with the clean foods, like they're always going to be in a shell, like a protective covering, because that's not always the case. I just think that it's interesting, and that's a good rule of thumb. If something is really porous and easy to trap moisture, or it's easily penetratable, those are things that I would definitely do a better job of washing. And then let's get into the Clean 15. Clean 15 are fruits and vegetables that have least detectable pesticide residues. And let's get into those. Number 1, thanks the Lord, avocados, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papaya, sweet peas that are frozen, says specifically frozen, asparagus, honeydew melon, kiwi, cabbage, watermelon, mushroom, mango, sweet potato, carrots. Great. Interesting because a large amount of these foods do have that protective covering. That's avocado. The corn even has that protective layering. Pineapple, of course, papaya, melon, kiwi, even though I'm one of those people that definitely eats kiwi whole. I rinse it off and then I just eat it whole. Watermelon, definitely, mango, and then the remaining 8 or so. They definitely have some susceptibility, if you will. There's onions, which do have a little bit of a layer, but you peel it off, it's a pretty thin layer. There's asparagus, which that is just right out in the open. You can pick it off a plant. I mean, asparagus is susceptible, so I would still wash that too. But I do think that it's, for some reason, because it's grown like it's grown up and out of the ground in these bushes, as opposed to being straight from the ground, from the earth, like a carrot. You pluck a carrot straight from the earth and you think, okay, if there's herbicides and pesticides, I don't know the exact science on why, but from what I can tell, it does err on the side of having a more protective layer, which makes sense. Here's something that I was looking at, and a lot of times we know anything with the word side, pesticide, herbicide. Side means death, kill. Like when you take an antibiotic, when you take when you have herbicides, pesticides, when you spray glyphosate or when you spray roundup, it is an herbicide. It kills herbs. You're thinking, okay, we know that's bad for me. But why? What does it do? What are some reasons why this is potentially toxic to humans? For instance, researchers have linked these toxins, they've linked them to everything from birth defects, lower sperm count, higher levels of heart disease, and even cancer. Birth defect, it's so interesting because the more and more big companies, big agriculture uses these monocrops, meaning they have these like massive amounts of crops they'll have cornfields or whatever kind of fields they have, and then they fly planes filled with these pesticides, herbicides, toxins, chemicals, and they literally drop the chemicals from the plane so that it covers more efficiently the land. So they're getting covered. So you think, oh, well, this is a crop that's heavily sprayed. Okay, we understand that. But then there's a portion of their corn that might not be sprayed right over. But you can't think that those chemicals in the air don't move over. They dissipate. They spread all around. And not to mention they're just like going into the air. It's garbage. But you have these large amounts of pesticides being sprayed, plus levels of infertility are going up, and they're the highest they've ever been. And we can't ignore these correlations. I'm not saying this is 100% the reason why fertility rates are changing and the sperm counts are not as high and not as strong. Like it's on both sides here. It's really, to me, interesting, and these are the kind of things that really speak to me a lot. Something that I saw, 4 of the 5 pesticides found most commonly in the dirty dozen are actually fungicides, and it names 4 different ones that I cannot pronounce. For example, one that's called fludioxonil. Oh God. Bear with me here. It was found in 90% of peaches, while another one was detected in 54% of pears. So there are a lot of different types of fungicides that they want, and obviously having natural fungicides is going to help the plants live longer. It's going to help produce a more robust crop. But while they do help to keep the produce fresh and mold free, studies suggest that they may hurt hormone systems. Fludioxonil in particular has been shown to act like an estrogen and increase the spread of potential breast cancer cells by as much as 1.5%. I personally have probably TMI, but like I would have like a fibrous tissue. I feel like I don't have like the smoothest set on me. And if you're a woman, you understand what I'm talking about. If you have like fibrous boobs, it's just genetics. But there is a history of breast cancer in my family. No, thank you. If buying organic is going to reduce the amount of something that could potentially cause any sort of increase in breast cancer, it's just not for me. And I'm not trying to be fear-mongering. These are just some of those things that we think about. And if you are already investing the time, energy, and resources into buying fruits and vegetables, let's find a way to clean these properly. All of this to say is they feel like it is still more important to be eating fruits and vegetables. But if you can rinse them as well, I know you probably give it a quick little rinse when you get home. Sometimes I just eat blueberries right out of the carton or strawberries right out of the carton, or I just grab a kiwi and I just house it after a quick rinse. But let's talk about a practical way we can get up to anywhere from 70% of chemicals to up to 90% of chemicals. I've seen percentages on both ends of that scale. One thing to note, there is also, if you're not buying organic, there are some forms of pesticides that and protective coverings that they spray on fruits. There are some that you can scrub and soak and wash to the best of your ability. They're still going to be on there. It's not ever going to be 100%. Something that I do, and I did this afternoon, get a big bowl. I had just like a big metal mixing bowl. You can use whatever giant bowl you have. And if you don't have a bowl big enough, just do this twice. You can do it. You got this. Let's not overthink. I got back from the grocery store and I did this while I was multitasking. I was making lunch and putting together some of the notes for the podcast while I was taking these notes so that I knew what to talk about. And you put the strawberries, for my instance, I did strawberries. So anything that you're washing, peaches, grapes, blueberries, carrots, whatever it is, you put them in the bowl, keep them uncut, unchopped, just as you found them. take them out of the container, put them in a bowl, fill them up with water so that they're basically submerged or floating, or they don't have to be all the way floating, but just soaked full. And then you put about a tablespoon of baking soda, and I did extra shot glass or two worth of white vinegar. And I'm sure you can use other types of vinegar. And I don't even think vinegar is the main ingredient in this. I do think it's the baking soda. Give them a little hand mix and then let them sit for, I did about 10 minutes. I think something is better than nothing. If you only have 5 minutes, that's great. Like if you're preparing lunch for your kids, but you still want to wash your stuff, do that in the beginning. And then here I am giving parenting advice. Like I don't have children, I'm fully aware, but I just feel like would be efficient. If you're making the kids food or you're making yourself food, wash them, soak them while you prep the rest of the food. It gives you just enough time to cut off the crusts, gives you just enough time to put on the bib and get them in the chair and do all that stuff. And by the time again, something is better than nothing, but if you have the opportunity to do this for like 5, 10, 15, 20 even minutes, you're doing great, sweetie. That's amazing. I think I did mine for 10 minutes, chopped up. I just took off the tops and then put them away. I did rinse them really well in a colander afterwards, but that way any of the baking soda, anything that was loose but still clinging to the vegetables got off. Is this foolproof? There's definitely a bunch of studies that go into the difference in pesticides from before and after you wash them like this. I have not been one of those scientists. Look, there are some people that I trust, and this is a tactic that seems very approachable, very simple. Baking soda can be found anywhere. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere. I mean, you can get it in the grocery store right now. You can walk up the street. They have it at gas stations. Like if you're in the car right now and you're like, hey, I got to get gas. I may as well do this. I may as well just do what Liza says and get some pesticide removal, aka baking soda. Soak your stuff. And if you're like, oh, I already washed my stuff and put it away and it's already in there, go do it again. You got this. It's Sunday. Maybe you're chilling today. This is the time. Go put on Kardashians and wash your vegetables. 80-20. Okay. Here's what I wanted to get into. I don't even know where to begin with this because I find sometimes, quick aside, that I get so passionate and invested into a study that I basically just want to read the whole study to you. Because to me, the entire thing is important, but to you, it would be me just reading a study. I won't do that. I'm going to take a couple of highlighted pieces of this study and okay. The thing is, we hear a lot about, let me paint a picture for you. You're talking to your friends or you're on Instagram and you see people talking about their trip to Europe. They're in Italy, they come back and they feel so healthy while they're in Italy. Although they're eating pasta and bread and wine and cheese all day long, maybe they're like, oh, well, we were walking a ton. You cannot really outwalk chemicals. People in Italy, people in Europe, and you know this when I went to Italy last year, I was eating pasta 3 times a day and having like a croissant for breakfast and bread all day long and cheese, less protein than I've maybe ever had. And I felt amazing. I didn't feel inflamed. Don't even ask me how it's possible in living in the US where like there is no possible way you could feel less fluffy eating that way, but you just do. That has so much to do with the ingredients that they use. And all the time we hear, oh yeah, in Europe it's like way healthier, it's way better, but do we really know why? And that's what I wanted to speak on. There are so many European products that completely ban the types of chemicals that we put into food absolutely normally. The difference between, you may have seen this, it's like a pretty viral picture of McDonald's fries EU versus US. There's a pretty viral picture of the ingredient list that goes into the McDonald's fries in the United Kingdom, Europe, and the McDonald's fries in the US. They look the exact same, probably taste about the exact same, and the ingredients in the McDonald's fries in the UK are potatoes, veggie oil, dextrose, and fried in non-hydrogenated vegetable oil, salt added after cooking. And here's the ingredient list for the US. Potatoes, vegetable oil, which is canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, and natural beef flavors. Dextrose, sodium acid pyrophosphate, salt, fried in vegetable oil blend with citric acid and dimethyl polysiloxane. I'm sure I said that right. You can hear it, you can see it, the difference in the people in Europe, the health levels, the chronic disease is lower, and then you can see it on the labels. You can look it up. You can also see in Europe the portion sizes are slightly smaller, although they have been adopting more of an American portion size, but that's also basically based a lot on tourism and all that good stuff. All of this to say is in Europe, they naturally are using and actually banning a lot of ingredients that are known carcinogens and chemicals. In the US, and I'm speaking to Kellogg's specifically, Kellogg's brand, you know that they have tons of different cereals, the sugary cereals that we all know and love from the past, from our childhood. And again, I am not here for judgment. I am not here for, like, when I grew up, I definitely, if I went over to a friend's house, because my parents didn't buy it, but if I went over to a friend's house, I was housing Gushers. And my parents weren't saying, oh, you're bad for having Gushers, or I'm not letting you go to this kid's house because they have X, Y, and Z cereal. That wasn't the case at all. I'm simply, the more I learn, the more I want to speak about this. With the ingredients that are banned in the US, the list really hasn't even begun. The difference between the US and Europe is that Europe said, we are banning these ingredients, and then they do it. That is the difference. That is the main difference. They not only talk the talk and say, yes, we understand that these chemicals are harmful, we will remove them. In the US, we say, yes, we understand that these chemicals are harmful, and they always quantify it, and they're like, in moderate amounts, these are considered fine. They never say healthy. They say non-harmful. I'm like, not selling me. They say these things. They say, yes, it is our goal by 2023 or 2024 to remove red dye number 5 from our certain cereal. Maybe it was Fruit Loops, I'm not positive, or Lucky Charms, or who knows, hopefully all of them. They say all these things. It is more than halfway through 2024. Absolutely no removal of any of these ingredients in the United States has been done. None of these have been done. Maybe certain smaller companies have taken upon themselves to reduce the amount of things that they're using. Maybe they have taken their own stand. But the big companies, Kellogg's, Monsanto's, all of these different things, they do make these huge political statements, and they have all this backing, and they have all this information, they have all these words, yet they do not take out the harmful ingredients. This is all in plain sight. Okay, yes, I wanted to have it in front of me, but yeah, this is Kellogg's in 2015. Kellogg's announced a plan to remove artificial colors and flavors by 2018. So 2015, they're saying we're going to get rid of the artificial colors and flavors in 3 years. Those 3 years come around, and then they're listed some of their top sellers, Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, probably more, still sold with artificial colors and flavors. And then 2019, or if 2019 rolls around, they're releasing more and more and more and more. Come 2023, icy cereal is released. Like, there are so many artificial colors and flavors that are used that have been directly associated with increasing risks in children with autism, neurological disorders and diseases. Clearly, we talked about it earlier with the with hormone imbalances and infertility rates going up, higher marks of chronic diseases and cancers. It's a real funny thing we got going on here. I wanted to compare the difference between the European French fries as well as the American French fries. And I wanted to go through quickly the American version of Fruit Loops, which is, the toucan. It's colorful. If you're in the grocery store, you will see that it is it's not at your eye level. If you go into the cereal aisle, it's not at your eye level. If you are even like an average of 5 feet, maybe something like that. If you're an adult, if you are young, basically the target audience for Fruit Loops, these boxes of Fruit Loops and really popular cereals are lower than that because they want to be at children's eye level. Now, in America, the American version, you guys just got to be ready for this list. The American version of ingredients in Fruit Loops. First ingredient, sugar. First ingredient, sugar. Whole grain yellow corn flour, enriched flour, wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, vitamin B, thiamine mononitrate, vitamin B2, riboflavin. Yes, riboflavin is fine. I'm sure it's some synthetic form. I'm not sure. Folic acid, don't let it fool you. It's not like giving you a medicinal property of folic acid, I'm sure. Not like a good source of folic acid and saying, oh, should be used for a multivitamin. Whole oat flour, corn bran, modified food starch, oat fiber, contains 2% of or less of vegetable oil, hydrogen. Even if it says contains 2% or less, that 2% of less of each of these individual ingredients. It's not saying all of the bad ingredients amount to 2% or less. No, each ingredient they're saying that I'm about to say has 2% or less. So add it all together, it's still a ton. 2% or less of vegetable oil, 2% or less of maltodextrin, which is another form of processed sugar that has a ton of side effects. Salt, natural flavors. Natural flavors could honestly have over 120 ingredients in them by themselves, just natural flavors. Red dye 40, yellow dye 5, yellow dye 6, blue dye 1, BHT for freshness. I don't even know what that is. Vitamins and minerals. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid, reduced iron, niacinamide, vitamin B6, pyroxine, hydroxyline. Can't spell it or can't say it. Vitamin B2, riboflavins, folic acid, vitamin D3, and vitamin B12. So great. They're saying all these things that are in there, like the vitamins and everything like that. Also, less than 2%. Not going to be your daily recommended amount. And also, if we know that the main ingredient in here is sugar, the first ingredient they say is the most largely used ingredient in that whole list. Sugar. Here's the Australian version. Cereal, 60% corn flour, wheat flour, oat flour, sugar, vegetable oil, salt, natural colors from paprika extract, carmine, curcumin, vegetable carbon, copper, chlorophyll, minerals, iron, zinc oxide, vitamins, niacin, B6, riboflavin, folate, natural flavors, orange, lime, lemon. All of this to say, there's no dyes, there is no food coloring, there isn't the BHT for freshness. I'm sure they're using some other kind of preservative, but I'm not saying that the Australian version is a health food. What I am saying is that if a box of Fruit Loops is $5, so is an instant container of at least 10 servings of oatmeal. And if oatmeal isn't still the greatest thing in the world, if you get like a just plain oatmeal, it's still going to have far fewer toxins and ingredients and chemicals. All I'm saying. These are just safer for you. I'm not saying that they are a health food, but they are less dangerous for you. These are things to keep in mind. Now, I wanted to get into a study to support some of this. It's just wild because all of this is happening right in front of us. And this goes back to saying that Kellogg's mentioned in 2015 that they were going to start getting rid of these toxic and harmful ingredients. That has not happened. It has, think of all that we have gone to, we're in war. There's a war going on. And that is the focus. I'm not comparing these things to war, but I'm saying there has been so much that has gone on in the past 10 years that it just goes to show how little accountability we have. Like, we can move things real quick if it means money. America can move things real fast if it's getting paid, real quick if it means that they are going to avoid like a huge amount of really public trouble. But oftentimes the money for these companies comes really secretly and it's paid out really secretly. Now let's get into this. We said that in Europe and UK, they do ban what they say they're going to ban for the most part. But then here, we can't even get them to remove artificial flavoring and dye. The study I'm about to read from is from Beyond Pesticides, and I quote, "As Beyond Pesticides reported previously, Monsanto has a long history of challenging scientific findings on Roundup and glyphosate." Monsanto is the large company that deals with Roundup and glyphosate. They're like the monster behemoth company that created the toxic Roundup glyphosate. The challenging scientific findings on Roundup, glyphosate, and evidence of harm to human health and environment and crops themselves, as it seeks to avoid liability claims by those suffering from cancer. They have been sent lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. It actually says that as of June of, I believe, 2003, it has settled 125,000 claims, resulting in $9.6 billion. With people who think their non-Hodgkin lymphoma is due to the use of Roundup. There are still 30,000 unresolved cases. Okay? This is saying that there are almost $10 billion worth of lawsuits that have been settled. If $10 billion worth of lawsuits have been settled, imagine how many lawsuits were even filed. They're not doing settle with any single person who files a complaint or says that their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is due to Roundup. They're not settling with 100% of these things. So imagine if it took 125,000 claims to put out $10 million. Just imagine how many cases there were. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And that's just like the first number that pops up here. Here's what really gets me. And I'm going to piss some people off here, but I really can't stand this. Like the fact that it took me 30 minutes to even find this article. Okay. As reported by Beyond Pesticides, which is this resource, a rash of state legislation has been introduced in Idaho, Iowa, Missouri, and Florida, which would block plaintiff liability claims when pesticide products like Roundup cause harm. Okay, now here's what this means. This is stating that these different states are able to block the plaintiff liability claims when someone says that Roundup or one of their products causes harm. There is a mark that they can pay for to be put on their products by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and it basically is a mark of safety. And the chemical industry is pushing the notion that if it's pesticide products, say EPA on them, and is a mark of safety, that should shield them from liability. The industry wants immunity from legal redress for the failure to warn those harmed from exposure to its product. Essentially saying if their products have EPA on them and they say that they're based on their product from the is they slap a label that says EPA, they say that they should be shielded from all liability, saying, oh, well, we said on our package XYZ because we got this blanket statement that really means nothing that we just paid for. This should mean that we are not liable for any issues that are caused by this product, which essentially gives them absolutely zero backlash if anything goes wrong. What is the word I'm looking for? What is a company's incentive to make their product better, safer, healthier, less dangerous for consumers if there's absolutely no accountability? They have no accountability for if their products are actually super dangerous. So they could be literally saving a buck every single time they make a transaction, anytime they make a move for workplace safety, anytime they are saying, oh, well, there's no accountability. If this went through, they would be saying that the $10 million for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma victims who have said that they believe that their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was caused by working so closely with Roundup, I would really be interested to know, are these people who work at these glyphosate plants? Are they people who distribute glyphosate every single day as part of their job, where they're just trying to make a living, but they're being exposed to these incredibly toxic chemicals? And now the industry is saying, oh, well, we want to basically stop paying and we don't like being called out for our issues and for causing these really, really horrible things to happen to these people. And you don't really have any proof, but we're going to make sure that we pay off the right people, get the right label with the EPA, and it's basically going to be hands off. My hands are clean of this because we told y'all. That's exactly what it's saying. And this is not going down the exact same route because this is not based in agriculture. However, the same thing happened with vaccines. I'm not again, this is not just an opinion. This is blatantly out there in the news. You can look this up. I'm not making anything up here, but this is the same type of situation. It reminds me of vaccines where companies and big pharma, there is a statute in place saying that there is no liability for any injuries caused by vaccines. It's been after these companies pay out millions, billions of hidden dollars based on these direct side effects that then they say, okay, we got to put an end to us spending all this money on fixing the problems that we've caused. We're going to pay the government to put a statute out and a law saying that we are not liable, aka not accountable for any issues that come from our products. Just imagine. Okay. Here's some perspective, and I wish I had said this in the beginning of the episode, but here we are. Imagine if we, I for instance, put out a product that said, let's say I put out a protein. I take protein supplements. I think that they're great. Imagine if I had a Hotter Than Health protein. Ooh, maybe we should. A Hotter Than Health protein. And I claimed it had X amount of protein. Here are the ingredients. It been tested. You're going to feel really good, build strong muscles. We're super happy about it. You're going to feel nice and full. This is going to be a part of your fitness journey. It's chocolate flavor. It's going to go straight into your stuff. It's going to blend really well. You're going to love this Hotter Than Health protein. Imagine if I had said that, and let's say for simple numbers, 1,000 people purchased it. 1,000 people purchased this protein powder. And then let's say the next week, 20% of people said, hey, I've been using this protein powder once a day as recommended, and I have had extreme gastrointestinal issues. It's the only thing in my diet / lifestyle that has changed, and I've added in the past week. I'd like a refund. Okay. 1,000 people bought it. 1 people said that. No question. Of course. Yeah. Here's your money. I'm so sorry. Like a handwritten note. I'll give you a phone call. I'll come to you. I'm so sorry. Okay. That's 1 out of 1,000. Great. Imagine if that was scaled 100x and we had people saying, hey, not just a gastrointestinal issue, like not just constipation from this thing, this has caused cancer. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to pay out these first couple of people, but since I see that this is becoming a problem, instead of fixing my formula to ensure the right research goes into figuring out why people are having these problems in the first place, I am going to slap a label on it, quote unquote EPA or safety tested or something that would protect me from having to have any type of accountability for the protein powder that caused you those gastrointestinal issues. I would have every right as a company to say, oh, well, it says on here, this means you are adopting your own certain risk or your whatever it is. It slaps that label of protection and liability with having done zero work on my part to clean up the product. It just means that I'm no longer liable for your issues based directly from my product. Wow. This episode really went from, hey, wash your vegetables, here's the clean 15, to I'm just on a soapbox. And I cannot scream this louder. I wish that I could. If this is of interest to you at all, I'm going to put these links to the in the show notes for the pesticide study, the details, the clean 15, all of that good stuff. All the resources will be in the show notes. If this has been interesting to you, I hope that you message me on Facebook or on Instagram. I hope that you send me something and let me know that it has resonated or that this is something you're interested in, because when I get into this, it just upsets me. It upsets me not as a victim, but as someone who truly believes that there should be some sort of accountability. And there is so much ego in our marketing, in big pharma, in big agriculture. There's so much ego. Nobody is saying, I'm sorry. Nobody is saying, how can we make this better? They're saying, how can we make it better for us, not for the greater good? And that is not a company I want to support. Do your research. I hope that some of this lands. I know that it was a bit scattered when I get super passionate about it, and there's a lot going on, a lot of information. I appreciate you bearing with me if you're still here. Otherwise, make sure you share this on social media. Make sure you give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast. And I'm going to try and wind down from this, maybe get a glass of cold water, take a walk. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will talk to you next Thursday. We talk a lot about products that we trust, know, and love on this podcast, and it wouldn't be fitting without talking about my absolute favorite sponsor, which is Organifi. Organifi is one of the only brands out there for their protein that is cleaning it up, all right? They're cleaning it up, you guys. And if you are someone who, it's summertime, you're making more smoothies, you're making protein shakes, and you want to add your fruit, your organic blueberries, your bananas, all of that good stuff, and your spinach, you know how to wash it now. If you're adding all of that in and you want a clean protein, you're cleaning everything else up already, this is the greatest protein. I love it. It's delicious. The Organifi protein is also glyphosate residue tested and free, meaning the glyphosate roundup that we were just talking about, they test. They make sure it's not in there. I bet we didn't know that a lot of brands out there for their supplements still have a high glyphosate amount, or they're not checking for it at all. That is something that I really appreciate, is the candor and the clear consistency of Organifi. You can try out the protein or the greens juice. I just had it a couple of hours ago. You can try out the green juice as well and use the code HTH for 20% off. Again, that is code HTH for 20% off. Enjoy.